stories. I remember Tom Bernard had a life-threatening tumor, and by doing the process, it completely went away. Same with Marissa, my cousin, who's going to be in the next awakening with her husband. She had a tumor in the center of her head, and I remember knowing when she was going from one chair to the next, I knew the moment it was now going to be healed. I knew it. There was a woman with a thing on her liver, size of a grapefruit. And at one point, she's talking to the chair, talking to the liver, saying, I really want to live. I want to live. And she switches chairs, and the liver says, you know, even a couple of years ago, it would have been okay, but it's too late now.
Oh. Wow.
So she said, when did you start in me? And from one chair, of course, she can't, doesn't make any sense. She switches chairs, and what comes to the surface subconsciously is 17 years ago when you married that man instead of that man.
They both weren't there.
So now, she realizes in the conversation that she's got to clean things up, not only with the husband she's been torturing for 7 years, but also with her family and everybody. So she gets her family together, she cleans up all the messes, and a week later she died.
Wow.
The guy with throat cancer who came to me, and when he asked, you know, he got mad at the cancer, and you're doing all this stuff to me, and you're ruining my life. And when he switched chairs, he said, you know, why are you doing this to me? And when he switched chairs, the throat cancer said, because you have verbally abused everybody you've ever loved your whole life. Of course, where the cancer is, throat. And I try to get him, and it's really interesting when I deal with life-threatening illnesses like AIDS or cancer or things like that. It's really interesting that the voice that comes out of the chair is adamant. The come from is always the same. You're going to deal with this now or you're gone. That's the adamant in the voice. You see what I'm saying? And the throat cancer said to him, if you want me to go away, you have to clean it up with your kids. And I don't mean saying a couple of nice things. You need to clean it up. You need to get honest. You need to be... I mean, the throat cancer was very specific. And I could tell the kind of guy he was. And I said, look, this is not going to be easy for you. This is going to be a challenge. You don't have an easy time being open and telling the truth about your feelings. And, you know, this is going to be tough, so please stay in touch with me. Let me support you. Well, after a couple of times of me telling him, no, that's not enough. You need to go, you know. Then he stopped calling. He was dead within a year. And his throat cancer told him exactly what to do to save his life. Exactly. Whereas Eric McGraw, one of my favorite people who've been through my work, when he was up at Lava, we were doing a breakthrough in front of the room, and I did some empowerment dialogue because he had AIDS. He just found out he got AIDS. And the AIDS told him, I won't take your life if you promise that you will live your dream.
Wow.
It's got to be 17, 18 years later, he's still alive. He is living his dream. Do you understand? Yourself, your body doesn't care whether you get it here or wait till you get to heaven. You know what I mean? But you will get it. One way or the other, you're going to get it. Okay. Only by healing and empowering that part in yourself will you dissipate the energy, the feelings, the self-doubt, the upsets, the automatic triggers, and turn a big deal into no big deal.
Say the first part.
Only by healing and empowering that part in yourself will you dissipate the energy. Will you turn a big deal into no big deal. Once the energy you have on this part of yourself is dissolved, then you can successfully attract what you want. Until then, you can only attract what you're afraid of. Think about the choice there. Your worst nightmares. Gail's a perfect example. How many of you can recognize that the reason why she attracted Doug and all that whole mess was because she had this fear of letting go of the dream, you know what I'm saying? And that she kept doing these behaviors that wouldn't serve her, and she will not attract the love of her life, but she could. She could do automatically. I mean, the truth is, if you look at Gail, you know she's an amazing person. She could have the best men on the planet. Everybody knows that, except her. True?
True.
Anybody disagree with me? No. She's got everything it takes to have the best. But if she doesn't change her vibration, if she doesn't dissipate the energy, if she doesn't turn a big deal into no big deal, she cannot attract that man. She will get a different version of Doug. As a matter of fact, by law, the next version of Doug will be a little bit worse.
Don't do it.
Kevin.
What's the sweetheart message?
Well, we're not there yet. But you're about to do it. Okay? Open your workbooks to a thing called How to Feed Back the Sweetheart Message.
Good job.
Thank you for the segue.
Yeah, no,
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
paid
Yeah.
it.
Page black.
It's in the handout,
The other, not the one.
not the three-quarter packet, the handout.
This sounds like a never-ending process.
It's the first page on your handout.
Yeah, probably.
Not in your pre-course packet, on your handout.
We'll get you one.
It's the very first page. Lauren, say that again.
You're never done with this, are you?
No.
Okay. That's all. Just checking.
Let
That's it.
me just say,
Like you dissipate one thing and something else is going to come up.
right, if you told the truth, you would disappear. Okay?
Okay.
So, I'll use my own example. I was the king of wimps, on the verge of a nervous breakdown and all that stuff. So, that's my issue. Whatever your issue is, whatever your black hole is, that's going to be your issue for life, okay? Now, I'm on a whole new level of wimphood, okay? It's hard to imagine me as a wimp when I'm in front of the room, but the truth is, like a few years ago, in my business, I got snagged by my same issue, and that round cost me $250,000. It wasn't fun.
That's a fun 2x4.
Yeah, it's a 2x4. So I'm just saying, I'm still in the game. I'm still dealing with my issues. I get slapped up all the time. You know what I mean? I do my nonsense. I react. I turn into an idiot and a jerk, and I blow it all the time. Okay? But you couldn't pay me $1 zillion to go back to where I was in my wimphood even 5 years ago. You know what I mean? 10 years ago? 15 years ago? 20? Woo! I am so glad that I'm at this level of wimphood. Laura.
I was going to say though, with time you actually learn how to really use it to your advantage. For me, if I have someone in my life, whether it's at work or various places, that I am just really struggling with, first I own the projection and see if it's something really simple that I can learn and see if our relationship changes. And then if it doesn't, then I will sit down and do a full empowerment dialogue because I want them to go away out of my life.
Yeah.
And it pretty much does 100% of the time. Whether if they're at work, they'll get a better job offer. The other day I had this mother that was driving everyone out of their minds, and I'm like, well, she's obviously in my life for a reason. And so I did the empowerment dialogue. Next day she calls up, I just don't feel good about this particular person being in this group that we have to do. And it was me, which I really wanted out. But it was after the empowerment dialogue. She wanted me out of the group. They came and said, oh, everybody who came, they're like, how did you do that? And I'm like, well, I don't know, we can talk about some other time, but I am out of the group. And so you really do, you can learn to really just use it to your advantage, to recognize what it is you're seeing in other people. Sometimes just doing the projection is enough, because you recognize what you need to change. And other times you need to do the full thing, clear the energy, so that they don't have to be in your life anymore. Kids, you got the lesson.
Thank you. Acknowledge. This is a really beautiful, simple process to do what she's talking about. It's kind of a short version of empowerment dialogue. This is kind of the shortcut, okay? So, let me go through it, okay? First, you put a chair in front of you, and you get alone, say it out loud. One sentence bottom line messages which expresses your complaint or resentment. Like you always hold yourself back from expressing your love, or whatever your bottom line one sentence message is, right? Then you say it to yourself. Gary, you always hold yourself back from expressing your love, okay? Now, to yourself, not to them, you feed back the sweetheart message. See, Gary, why do you hold yourself back from expressing your love? Well, what you don't want is to be scared and attacked and vulnerable. You know what I'm saying? What you want is to be safe. You feed back the don't want and the do want to yourself to identify the sweetheart message. Why is that part of me holding back from expressing their love? Well, you look in yourself and you say, well, like you would a little child, a 5-year-old, I understand. You're scared, and you feed back the negative, what they're avoiding and what they're trying to get by doing it. And these are just examples. You don't want to look like a fool. You don't want to feel stupid. You don't want to feel like it's futile. You want it to be safe. You want to know you're appreciated. Whatever your sweetheart message is of that thing. Like, Gail, if I had you do this up here, when you were saying, you always give me those little tiny pebbles and then I chase them. Well, what's the sweetheart message? Why is she trying to give you those little pebbles? There's a reason. There's some really stuff she doesn't want, and there's some stuff she wants. Okay? Y'all get it? Everybody get what I'm saying about the sweetheart message? Don't want and do want? Good. After you identify the sweetheart message, then you say to the person in your life that's really upsetting you the same thing you said to yourself. Which at that point should have less of a charge on it. You should be turning it from a big deal to no big deal. Why? Because you owned it in yourself. Everybody with me?
Mm-hmm.
Now you should notice that if you feed back to your favorite jerk or whoever the sweetheart message, you don't have as much energy on it. Because you're now understanding and a bit more compassionate about why they might be doing that. Does that make sense?
So you're feeding back the positive out, the positive that you discovered in that process.
You're saying exactly to them what you said to yourself.
The don't wants and the do wants.
Don't wants and the do wants. The positive intention behind the negative behavior.
And then you're telling you the sweetheart message?
The third step, you're telling you the sweetheart message.
So which
The
one
fourth
is it?
step,
Tell the other.
you say it to the other person. In other words, whatever you said to yourself in number 3, now you say to them.
But which you says it?
Okay. First, I'm talking to my favorite jerk. Okay? And he's upsetting me because he doesn't express his love.
Right.
Drives me nuts. Why don't you express your love? Right? So I say it like that. And then I say it to myself. I'm owning my projection. I say, Gary, okay? It doesn't matter which Gary it is. It's Gary and it's Gary. There's 2 Garys.
Mm-hmm.
I'm just owning my projection.
Mm-hmm.
Why don't you express your love? Got that?
Mm-hmm.
Now I give him the sweetheart message. Oh, what you don't want and what you do want is this and this. Now I say it to the original jerk, Charlie in my life.
So instead of like repeating it, you just ask why.
No,
Why do you?
no.
Oh, that's a sweetheart message.
I just say to Gary, right? I'm owning my projection. I say, Gary, I think I see why you don't express your love, because you don't want this and you do want that.
Okay.
Like that. I've got,
Okay, everybody is going to imagine that there is a chair in front of you, and you're going to go through this process, all 4 steps. Okay? So raise your hand if you need help. You're all going to do it out loud. Nobody's going to be listening to each other. Okay? Unless you want to take some notes and blackmail them later, you know.
Sweet. Typical.
Start with the small ones or the big ones? What was it, an 80-pounder?
Well, it'd be better to start with a smaller one just so you can have some practice and some success, you know. Yeah.
My biggest challenge is I don't really understand any sweetheart message in this behavior at all.
Okay, give me the behavior. I'll give the sweetheart message.
Where they're always putting the people they love down and pointing out their faults.
Good. So, then when you own your projection, how you do that, how you put people down, and how you finding their faults, okay? So it would be real easy for me to say, so the reason why you do that is because you don't want to be attacked first. You want to attack first before you get attacked. You want to be safe. You're like a cactus who wants to make sure that she doesn't get hurt. Right? Good. If you need help, raise your hand. One of us will come along and try to help you.
Could that also be to herself?
Yeah,
Yeah.
of course.
Well, no, but find my own faults.
Right, that she's always finding her own faults in herself. Why do you always find your own faults in yourself?
Because you love yourself so much you want yourself to be perfect. Just a really dumb way to get there. James.
So some projections are the fear we have or the self-doubts we have. I'm having a hard time turning that around. What if it's one of those? Still do the same process?
Well, for this process, yes.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah. Okay, get busy and raise your hand if you need help.